Thanks for being here. I hope everyone is having a great experience thus far at eTail Asia. So in this session, we're going to explore the growing sense of GenAI fatigue that's in the market. Many of you might be experiencing it right now, so hopefully this will be interesting and informative. So whether or not you are actively experimenting with GenAI, or you're still considering how it truly fits into your strategic plans, this session offers an independent perspective of how you can move forward in a way that's specific to your business. So what you'll learn today, you'll learn why are retailers experiencing GenAI fatigue? What are some key GenAI alternatives? What is the true GenAI sweet spot? And how to step forward without regret. So we'll do that in 20 minutes, which I think we got. And then we'll do Q&A, of course, as part of this. Now, the other thing I want to say is that when I say GenAI fatigue, what I really mean is language model fatigue. Language model sounds too techy, doesn't it? But language models are the algorithms that underpin GenAI and agentic AI for that matter, that process human language, images, videos, and also provide real-time decisioning and automation. So I'm going to use GenAI here more expansively just because it takes away some of the technical, abstracts some of the technical complexity. Okay. So many retailers today are at a crossroads. They're eager to experiment with GenAI, or are actively doing it now, right? Continue those experiments. But they have grown weary of overhyped promises, mounting costs, and higher levels of business risk. So, for example, based on a recent study by McKinsey of 2,000 employees, 2/3 of those employees said that their organizations have not even begun to scale GenAI in their organization, have not even begun. So I would assume, I'm not going to ask for show of hands, but we're probably going to be somewhere probably in that range. And these three factors that I mentioned are no doubt at the heart of that. So, overhyped promises. Saying another way, differences in expectation of the capability of GenAI. So what I thought it was going to do versus what it does. In the work that we do for clients, the two themes within that come up most often are accuracy and effort, meaning the effort it takes to actually make it work. So let's talk about accuracy. So GenAI is really good at human-related tasks. Question and answering, summarization, generating content, could be overlays, could be something new. It gets to levels about 85 to 95% accuracy in those situations, which is pretty good. And as we'll go through a little bit more, in a lot of situations, that is more than good enough. But when you're dealing with situations that deal with structured data, data classification, forecasting. I put sales forecasting up here just as one example of the forecast, other things of course, but you can see those numbers there on the left with GenAI and the right and alternative technology, machine learning. And there's definitely a stark difference there in those kind of situations. The other category is effort. So for effort, there's two areas within effort that our clients often talk about. First is the time that it takes to train GenAI, to train language models. And the time, and I actually heard this at the end of the last panel, and the time it takes to build data foundations. So that's collecting data, cleaning data, integrating data, etc. there's a lot there, that time. And based on another McKinsey study, actually, they interviewed organizations, and 80% of them said that the time to do those two things was significantly more complex, significantly took more time, and significantly took more effort. 80%. On the bottom of this slide, you'll see, way to quickly read that is basically this. Most organizations, they expect something in the order of months to do that, for those things, right? There's always deviation. Everybody's got different environments, et cetera, but months. But it turns out to usually be more like a year. And that, of course, can not only create time delays, but it can also significantly increase the total cost of ownership equation for that specific use case or project that you're doing. Can be as much as 60 to 80% of the total cost of ownership. Training and data foundations in kind of worst case situations. So the cost of GenAI, well, that's very topical, isn't it? Interesting enough, I actually spoke on that topic at eTail Summit in Australia last year, and it wasn't as widely, it was certainly being discussed, but it wasn't as widely discussed as I see it now. It is truly there. Everybody is talking about it. I have clients now that you mention the word GenAI, they think sticker shock and they don't want to hear it. So I know that's an extreme case, but it is true. So it is definitely very much in the conversation. You could have GenAI that actually works in a situation, okay, but it might not be the best choice because of cost. So, and you can see just with a couple of numbers I have up there, the left one being the difference in expectations, obviously in more worst case scenarios. I'm not saying every organization is like this, 30 times, 200 times at an enterprise level, right? This is what the CFO sees, right? Regardless if you're business casing the project or not, oftentimes you're not. But at a CFO level, they see the costs. And that's the GenAI cost in cloud, by the way, because they kind of go hand in hand in most cases. But then you can see the numbers when you use alternatives, just for operating cost here, but you can see that figure. So it's pretty compelling to, maybe we need to do things a different way, because that's kind of a big savings number, compared to the other. So the other area is risk. So there's brand risk, there's regulatory risk, there's security risk. Brand risk, often what's talked about are hallucinations, misinformation, saying another way. I have that on the bottom left. You can see a stat on GPT-4, one of the latest OpenAI models. It hallucinates 26 to 45% of the time. Again, certain use cases it might be fine to do that, but as more and more you're putting that in front of customers, you got to be careful with that. Regulatory risk, a lot of things get talked about. There's a lot of things around regulatory, of course, but a lot of it stems around GDPR, private and sensitive information. Training models on information that you did not get your customers' consent, moving their information across borders. These are all things that fall into that category, and organizations are reporting 72% are reporting increased regulatory risk with using GenAI. And 90% of them are taking further action based upon what they've seen in recent deployments. So then you have security, not shown here, but security, theft, leakage, private and sensitive information actually highlights there as well. Traditional means that that are cyber ways that cyber constituents attack, but some of that can also be the way you use prompting to get at the information. You can get at information with a certain sequence of prompts. So that's another thing that are on companies' minds. So some big drivers that are causing retailers to reduce the reliance on GenAI, right? And another stat I'll give you in Forrester, actually this one, where they were polled they surveyed senior executives, and 65% of them are actively considering GenAI alternatives in the customer experience area of their businesses alone. So let's talk about some of those alternatives that, as you'll find, all of you, many of you in this room, most of you in this room, I'd say, are using, and maybe many of you are actively considering using more for all or some of these factors. So the first one is interactive rule-based systems. These are systems that use decision trees and step-by-step guides to surface features, could be customer journey features, make decisions. These are systems that maybe if you have things in the shopping cart, it tries to upsell you in delivery options. If you don't, it tries to do bundle offers. Those kind of rule-based systems are in this category. They are typically locked up, bundled, and that's a good thing, into SaaS vendor offerings. Your Salesforce, your Workday, technology for digital process automation, robotic product, that's all part of it, and they're all into these platforms and serving that broader purpose. The second one is behavioral aware systems. So they surface features and make decisions based on user role and profile, past behavior, like user behavior. So all systems that deal in that area fall into this category. Obviously, when you're dealing with customer recommendations is one great example. And this deals with traditional machine learning. Traditional machine learning falls into this particular category. So whether you're dealing with AWS SageMaker or your Databricks, you're going to fall into that category. Then you have context-aware systems, and these surface features and make decisions based upon time, location, relationship, sensor data. Systems that do that. Obviously, it could be anything from you want to check all your locations around the country, or even more broadly, and the pricing, taking screenshots and taking the image and matching to what it's supposed to be, and flagging exceptions is one example of that. Platforms in here tend to be very, very more detailed, like time series databases and graph databases are very you probably heard of them, but they're more technical and detailed, but they're the ones that really make all this happen. Actually, sorry, I caught myself. I actually gave you the example of the next one. The example of this one, are for relationships and time. The one example I give you is the social relationships. So when you're seeing others in your social network buying a certain thing that compels you, hopefully, to buy, that falls into this situation. So my apologies. Non-language systems, when I talked about the pricing visual, that's for the next one. So non-language AI systems, that they do have AI algorithms as well, but they don't have a language understanding. So this is really where a lot of your anomaly detection happens. I'm going to make this better. Your forecasting happens, and your computer vision sits in here. So obviously the example I gave before was a computer vision example. So obviously things like Google Cloud Vision comes into play there. So again, these are things that probably most of you are already using in entirety or in some portion. These systems can work alone or work together. Okay, but they're also evolving. So what's happening, and this is just a couple of examples in the time we have, but interactive rule-based systems, they can actually are now moving more towards API-driven systems and systems that are reusable. So more things out of the box when you use them, right? And when I say out of the box, I'm not talking about frameworks, I'm talking about a piece of a workflow or end-to-end workflow that actually runs. Behavior aware systems, they're moving more towards self-learning. So they're able to more self-learn in situations when you're moving through the store and things are happening dynamically. You don't have to train the model, put it back in, let it run, it does what it's doing. It's adapting in real time. Sounds more like a GenAI model. And it kind of is in a lot of ways. Not exactly. Context-aware systems. They are bringing time and relationship together, time-evolving relationships, where the evolution of relationships matters, right? There's plenty of scenarios there. And then non-language AI systems, they're moving more towards reducing the heaviness of clouds, a lot of cost takeout. Going from cloud-heavy to edge smart, putting things, tiny ML on devices, reducing costs, reducing power, improving latency as well. So that's where these are going. So there's a lot of features there, a lot of features that exist, a lot of features that it's moving towards, but retailers are not abandoning GenAI. In fact, what they're doing is they're narrowing it. They're narrowing it to a set of core value propositions that is sweet spot. So let's talk about the sweet spot. There's 3 key value propositions I want to talk about briefly with you now. So the first is tailored engagement. So this is really where you're taking advantage of the human-like characteristics of GenAI, right? Your Siri's, your Alexa-based solutions, but also your ability to look at products, right? Overlay images on top of something, see how something looks. That's all part of it too. The content generation, right? That's all part of that. It's very good with no scenarios. Very good. Enhanced decision making. So this is making decisions rapidly. This is very important. It goes back to the accuracy part. Sometimes you just need time, and you need meaning not a lot of time, and the interaction part. Great for simulation. Great for simulation. Simulating supply chain demand issues, simulating competitor counter moves when you change your pricing. It is really good for that. And then business automation also came up in the panel at the end there. But yeah, this is where, it doesn't have to be solely, but this is where the agentic piece starts to fit in and really looking at things intentionally. So I want you to get me the lowest cost of this material, no matter what. Maybe it could be many geographies it's coming from, and it will go and attempt to carry that task out. So be mindful of time. So it's very clear that GenAI is not going anywhere. GenAI, for that matter, is not going anywhere. It will factor into your strategic plans. It is a matter of how and when. But the also key point I wanted to mention to you all today, or note to you all today, is that these alternative technologies are not just a short-term proposition. They are a long-term proposition, and they will work alongside GenAI. So we are evolving to a hybrid world. So how do you step forward in a hybrid world? What does that look like? Well, 4 key guiding principles I want to leave you with here today. Make your technology choices with purpose, efficiency, and care. So tie it back to your strategy. Get very specific. So when I talk about features, it can be features for customers, but you can use the more mundane term requirements. But get it down to what you really need, and specifically in your process area. Specifically, think about what that's going to cost you, and how you can maybe do that alternatively. And then from a risk perspective, do things proactively to mitigate the risk. Automatically redact data. Make sure marketplaces where you're building automations have been vetted, secure. There's things like that you can do to not either push security too much on people, or have layers of governance that almost creates a bit of paralysis, right? I'm not saying it's not necessary, but I think people would agree too. It can also greatly slow you down, and maybe you don't do GenAI just because of that. It takes too long to get it out. None of those situations. Maximize cross-organizational effectiveness and scale. So quite simply, the more people that are involved, the more benefit you're going to get. And in fact, the other way I'll say it is, the more people involved, the truly you're going to get end-to-end automation. You can't get end-to-end automation without the entire organization being involved. Pinpoint experiments. I know some would say that that's getting end-to-end. I have something here, but it has to be thought through. It can still evolve like that, but it has to be thought through and placing it in certain areas and everybody's together. But that takes time. I mean, I'm certainly not trivializing what's needed there, but it is important. No fear of regret by design. So data foundation work, very important, vital, more important for GenAI, more important. So it will not be regret. The work you will do there will pay off. And evolve and experiment with intention. So study the market, things are changing. Understand strategies to use, understand tactics, understand new features you can take advantage of. Maybe you can put that out there. Maybe even this pretty good acceptable risk and cost, you can just put it out there quickly. The other thing is operations is becoming more in vogue. So this is a little bit of back to basics. Over the better part, at least 5 years, okay? It's probably more, probably 5 to 7 years. What it's been is, and a lot of it's been with machine learning, right? But it doesn't matter what it is, to GenAI as well. Get it out fast, get it to customers. Why? Because I want to be the first. I want to get stickiness. I want people to come to my store. And great reasons and perfect, absolutely. But now, your competitors have it. It's a little different environment now. And now the worry is if I put these things to customers first, with now the way things are progressing, I might expose myself to serious brand risk. So use what's happening now, or people are thinking about and what I'm doing. Using use cases for operations that I can then leverage, and then I move it to front of house, feeling a lot better about myself, about the risk profile. So, I know we're a little over. Yes. Do we don't have any time for it. Okay. I'll just close this with, I will be at the speaker lounge, so we can do Q&A there for those that want to. If you wanted more information about this topic or wanted this presentation, you can reach out to me directly, no worries. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of today.